It's like trying to win a car race.
Should be a good one.
And as you're driving, saying, hey, make it run better.
You could have a posse of waifus.
Starting off kind of strangely.
Slaying the land.
Welcome to the show.
This is insanity.
Taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This info is pretty shocking.
Somebody's got to give an answer to this.
This is Augmented Reality.
You are watching my favorite channel.
I've not heard of them.
The Triple S League. Enjoy, guys.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast. This August 31st, 2021. My name is Ash. I'm here with you with Moontag and Subsidian, as always, coming to you live via YouTube and Twitch and archived almost anywhere you can find podcasts on the internet. We are the Triple S League, and this is the Augmented Reality Podcast, our weekly news and current events in gaming podcast. Welcome to the show. And hello to everyone who's up late in North America listening to us, and hello to everyone who is up at a more reasonable time on the other side of the world. So, man, yeah, it always feels like, because we only do this one once a week now, and we do a different podcast on set, or it's not even less of a podcast, more of a live stream. It's a live stream, but it's not so much a podcast on Saturdays. And then last week we didn't do this podcast because I was live covering the Xbox event that day. So it feels like forever since we've done this. Whenever it's like I take 1 week off of doing the podcast and suddenly I don't remember anything anymore of what I'm doing. But anyway, if you are listening live, please do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough. And it tells us in YouTube that you appreciate this content. So, yes, hello everyone who's saying hi in the live chat. A few early birds there. And it looks like everything's going, and I didn't forget to click any buttons, so all is well. Hey, Robin.
Good job. You did your job.
Funky, Sentinel Cheese, and a Goki? Not sure how to say that, but welcome to all of you. All right. Some interesting stories to talk about today. So, what are you eating, Moon?
I have soup.
You have
miso soup.
Great. You're sitting there eating miso soup. I'm sitting here. Well, I do have my green tea, actually. I do have my green tea. But now...
There you go. Matchy match.
The combination of the green tea and watching you eat miso soup is making me want miso soup now. Thanks a lot. Now,
It's pretty great. I got this instant pack, so basically I just have to boil water. It's wonderful.
Okay. Just silently hating you right now. Saib, how you doing?
Good. It's the news. The past few weeks have been just brutal and horrible.
It's I mean the general world news, definitely, for sure. Of course, we're going to focus more on just the gaming news side of things, and I don't know, will this cheer you up or will it not? We have a situation here. So game companies are starting to do what we've been saying they should do for ages now. They're hiring modders, and I can't remember how in depth we covered it, but a couple weeks ago there was a story about how Bethesda's hired the creator of one of the largest Fallout 4 mods, and now Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red is hiring 4 modders to help with Cyberpunk 2077. And there were some interesting thoughts on this on our Discord server, so I'm going to read through some of those. But modder, I'm going to say this wrong, Hambalco Benchi or Bents, anyway, goes by Traderrain online, so we'll just call them that. Said they would be joining CD Projekt Red alongside fellow modders Blumster, Nightmaria, and Arfuzzo. And I went to I looked up Traderrain on the Nexus mods, and there was only one mod under that name, but it was like some sort of full. It was a big modding toolkit or something. So anyway, the person seems to that they definitely know what they're doing. So
yeah, they know the current existing engine almost as good as devs do. So,
well, there you go. Well, and they're with CD Projekt Red bleeding staff like they are.
More, yeah.
Well, maybe. So the modders. Well, when you look at all, and we covered them quite in depth. We did a few videos on mods that were coming out day one and week one, and how they were just fixing fixing things so fast that it's like, what was the issue, guys? What was the issue? The modders are set to team up with CDPR under Yigsoft, a development company run by Tratarain and Nightmaria. Benchy spoke further about their new role at CDPR. We will be working on various projects related to the Cyberpunk 2077 backend and the game's modding support. We're really excited about this. Hope we can bring the game to the next level. All the niceties that people typically say. So, anyway, so is this... What do you think? Is this good? Is this just a more elaborate version of getting modders to fix the game for you? Now, granted, they're being hired on or contracted or getting paid at least, so that's good. We've been saying the game companies should do this for a while. But there were some thoughts in our Discord server that I'm going to bring up here and just read through. So... thanks to those of you who have posted about this on the Discord server. There are quite a few of you who did. Timebean says, whoa, I wonder if this means they are expanding modding capabilities so that the community can fix the game? If so, this is basically leaving it up to unpaid modders to fix the broken game so they will keep making money off it. Is CDPR now Bethesda? It was an interesting thought because, yes, these modders are being brought on. At least part of what they're going to be doing is working on the game's modding support.
Which, I mean, the tools guy, he might literally be brought in to do exactly what he's been doing for the last few months on that project. Like, there may be no difference in what he's doing. He's just now he gets to focus on it full time and encompass more and more tools and tech. So yeah, that's good.
But yeah, Funky Funky had a reply to that and said it again in the chat here. They're hiring people to write libraries for modders. It's companies getting modders to tell them what modders need, which is a good thing. And yes, so he will have access to the back end now and isn't just working, with the published version of the program, so he's not having to reverse engineer things, but will be, have access to the source code and stuff like that. So, overall a good thing, I think. But again, I guess the question comes down to what exactly are they working on? Like, are they going to actually be? Are they just going to be doing mod support, or are they actually going to be fixing some of what's problematic about the game? Projects related to the Cyberpunk 2077 back end. That's what I'm really curious about. What do you think that means in terms of working on?
It means we'll be getting more complex mods. It means that we'll see things like the my favorite topic, the third person perspective. It means that we'll get stuff like that. We'll get stuff like that are like core changes faster from the community once those tools are in place, because that's what the back end controls. The back end controls things that are, most mods are surface level, like, visual changes, additional options, things that are like fairly easy to do. Deep back end stuff, that's heavy, like deep engine stuff. So that's like tweaking a baseline system, like first person versus third person, like interacting with something through an animation or not. It's like those are what that brings to the table.
Right. So yes, definitely the potential for some much more in depth and complex mods. As Funky's pointing out in the chat right now, they so they'll be able to give tools that can hook into parts of the game that you can't necessarily access otherwise. But yeah, I found Timebean's question interesting, that especially at this point where they're, the game has really struggled up till this point. Is this the right time for them to start focusing on modding? And if they are focusing on modding now, is it because they want the modders to fix it for them? I don't know. It just was an interesting thought. Overall, I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on this.
No, I think you're asking a good question. And I think the answer is I think that they see that the modding community is active now, that it has declined slightly. So rather than trying to resurrect it once it's dead, it's better to keep it alive.
Mhm.
And I wish more companies did focus on this. I wish they did up the, we talked about Microsoft with the Halo thing and the Forge with Max last week. And the thing with that is that it's commonplace to bring in a modding tool or a Forge system, map editors, those kinds of things. Those kinds of things typically come late in the life of a game. Not all games. There's some games where it ships with it, but for the most part, you want as many updates, fixes, and tweaks done to the system before you start letting people get in there and kind of like tossing around things themselves, because there are some times where there are people who intentionally stay with an older game or an older version of a game so that they can continue to mod it, because the new version makes that more difficult to do, or if not impossible, so that they want to get into the system faster, better, access more stuff, change more things. And that's not possible in changes and updates. That I've known games that have killed their own modding community by bringing in a change that prevented them from modding it anymore. And they're like, see, but then the game immediately dies, and it's like, well, you only had a small small group of that there serving as that kind of function. And I've mentioned this story before, like World of Warcraft. Excuse me. They have a large modding community there, and what ended up happening is they started to ban people that were running this particular modding thing. And they said, oh, look, there's some exploiters using this program. So they identified the program, and then they just started to ban all accounts that were using it as they were logging in. And the ban went from like a few thousand to to a couple, like 20, 30,000.
Yeah, I think I remember when that happened. Yeah.
Then 200,000. Then it was like 500,000, and they panicked and they said, oh, okay, we've reversed all these bans, we're sorry. Oops. Because they realized really late, and this is the incompetency of that company coming through here. It's like they realized way too late that there were so many people that were using that tool for that express purpose of modding the game. And that,
Right.
yeah, some hackers were using it, but the number of hackers using it were in the few thousands. The amount of people using it for cosmetic stuff was like close to 500,000. And 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 it's like, if you do a cosmetic thing right, like you're not actually impacting the game at all, as far as like server side. Ooh, again, excuse me. You're not affecting it server side, but you're affecting it client side. And
right, yeah.
if you're changing something client side, there's really no reason for that. Some of the upgrades were visual, like trees. People like modding trees. I don't know why, but one of the biggest mod packs on Nexus for various games are tree and grass packs.
People like their nature to look
exactly.
to
it's
look
weird. It's
the
like
way they want it. Yeah, I mean,
I remember one of the first like 8K mods wasn't a fancy armor, wasn't a fancy character mod. It was just trees.
Oh, and
I'm like,
yeah, there was a big that was a big one for Skyrim too. Was getting better foliage, and who knows why? I think. Well,
that's sorry, I was referencing this guy.
Oh, you were talking about Skyrim, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that the atmosphere of the game, the environment you're in, has a big impact, and so that's why people they'll install an overhaul mod that turns it into like an icy winter, just cause they want to play in winter. Does it affect the gameplay?
My favorite mod for Skyrim for like visual alterations was the one that turned it into a tropical place.
Yeah.
So it was sand everywhere. It was hot sun, big trees out, like palm trees. There was like lions and tigers and like
Bears.
elephants instead of mammoths, and it was like wow, that is so cool. Like I think the bears were. I think there was a hippo mod in the works. Like it was really cool stuff, and I really like that kind of stuff. I really like the aesthetic, and I liked how much of a polar opposite it was to the change. There was ones that made it like more foresty and alpine, but
Yeah.
that just made it look like more like of a natural like Skyrim thing. I really enjoyed it when it was like, oh yeah, Skyrim, you got beaches and sand and sun and coconuts and like brilliant colored waters and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, wow, that's so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool
So you
because
can
it,
go.
because it was a 180 from the snow and the wind and the
Well,
that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
exactly, and that's the amazing thing about modding and Bethesda. That's one thing we can credit them greatly for is that they
And
haven't
I
tried
think
to hamper that. And I mean, they have tried some bullshit along the way, but
I think they need like I think they and I don't think they get enough praise for what they're doing. Like again, with modding there's two options you basically get. It's either you get the Bethesda thing or you get 2K's version of it where you say, "Hey guys, I'm going to mod this game. I'm going to bring in some cool graphics and we're going to change some stuff and hold on, there's a knock at my door." Opens it up. "Hey, we're here. Cease and desist. We're also going to seize your computer and hey, we stopped by your girlfriend's parents' place and told her that you might be into some really crazy stuff if you know what I mean." And you're like, well, "Oh my god, what's happening?" It's like yeah, we're here to destroy your life, buddy. It's like those are the two options.
those are your
Now again, some people might say, "Well, we don't like that." Well, yeah, I don't like the fact that those are the only two options either. But that's what we have to deal with. So
well, I
take your
guess
pick.
it's like you either allow it or you don't.
Mhm.
You don't, and if you allow it, then like I would say there's a third option in the middle. I don't know how often it is, you know, I don't know how often a company goes that way, where they don't try to hinder modding, but they don't actively support it either. That's I think option 3. I don't know how popular that is, but yeah, again, I mean, to their credit, like yeah, Bethesda's definitely been on board with the modding scene, and it's good to see CD Projekt Red kind of following through. And I have to wonder if they've realized that having a big modding community for the game is where the future of the game is. That's literally the future of Cyberpunk 2077. You look at Skyrim now, you play Skyrim unmodded. I mean, it's very broken in a lot of ways, but it's a decent game. You might play through it a few times, but it's the mods that keep people coming back and playing it now 10 years later. Really, it's and I think most people probably can't even imagine playing it without mods, especially 10 years on with our better hardware, and we can make it look a lot better. I think the idea of playing Skyrim unmodded right now is I mean, tell me in the chat, last time you played Skyrim, was it unmodded? But
I was on console, so yeah, it was unmodded.
I guess if you're on console, you don't have that option. But it's definitely contributed to the popularity, the longevity of the game. And so I'm wondering if CD Projekt Red has realized this game does not have a future. And if we don't want it to just be a flash in the pan, we've got to open up modding. We've got to let the community create content for it. We've got to actively support that. And that's going to be going to be where the increased interest and money from this game comes from. I have to think, because the timing is just really conspicuous. It's like, here we've fixed all of the technical problems in theory. I mean,
in theory,
that's what they're claiming anyway. It's back available for sale on PlayStation, so I guess it runs now. And for them to have just done that, and then they just released their first DLC, which was like little more than another technical patch with a few extra items added to the game, like literally things I can count on one hand. And to now be at this moment be saying, yeah, let's bring on somebody to help us with the modding tools. It seems like that must be a priority for them, and I have to think that they've got the future of the game in mind. But Funky says, by the way, Wiggly Type, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you live. Yeah.
Hello.
So Funky suspects that CDPR is going to completely repurpose the engine into a game developing tool. In a few years, it'll become a UE-like tool, but version 1. I mean,
it's possible.
They might go in that type of direction, right? Like where it's...
Honestly, that is more. They would have more success with that than Frostbite's had. That stupid EA engine.
For sure, yeah.
Because it wasn't like this one. At least has it's at least a competent shooter for now. Like they can improve it and grow on it. It's like that's the only thing that Frostbite had going for it. Period. And it's such a total piece of garbage that. It's amazing that anybody agreed to work with it.
Plus the Red engine, I mean, it just appears to be a much superior engine, and you can see where they did. It obviously supports third person, and the RPG elements could be built into it, right? Like it is an engine designed to support RPGs as opposed to Frostbite, which they really had to, if I understand correctly, they really had to, it was a really awkward process to make it work for games like Mass Effect when it's built to be, a first-person shooter game. Anyway, yeah, so that's what's going on there. We should get on to a few more topics here. Of course, China is continuing to be China, and this says that China really doesn't want young people to play online games. Now, I thought that this ban was, or their new restrictions were, I thought their restrictions on gaming were for games in general, but really anything's an online game in China, if I understand, because you have to log in, there's facial recognition, you have to identify yourself in order to use the internet, and everything's online. So when they say they're putting tighter limits on online gaming, I think that means all gaming. Correct me if I'm wrong there, because I don't
for kids.
For
right?
kids, yeah.
Now and again, but this is already stoking the flames of them preparing to make it so that your social credit score is dinged if you are an adult and you're spending 20 hours a week on games. Well, that's not very helpful. You could pick up a whole nother full-time job and help the party grow even stronger and bigger and better. Because why not? More money in the system. Of course, they're going to tax you at 90%, of that gain because it's a second job. But it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Don't go there. Stop supporting companies that are based there.
Well, I have to wonder, the reason I put on the thumbnail today, by the way, if anyone didn't figure out what the picture on the thumbnail was, it is a Cyberpunk 2077 mod that turns Dexter Deshawn's head into Thomas the Tank Engine. So that's what that is. This is the picture I grabbed because we were talking about the Cyber.
I thought you made that up. That's actually a real.
That's an actual mod.
Oh,
that's hilarious. I grabbed that still from a video of it, and it's really random.
I think I did hear about that.
Anyway, but so I mean, China's gonna China, obviously, but I think I wanted to go a little deeper and just talk about what kind of impact this is going to have, and are they gonna start really shooting themselves in the foot and having this backfire? Because I'm sure their stated motive is not necessarily the actual motive. in that they want to curb a gaming addiction, right? But let's assume for the moment that that is their motivation.
No, it's not.
But I can tell you as a young person whose game time was extremely limited when I was a kid. We bought a Nintendo, like the original NES. I got it for Christmas one year and was over the moon. But my playtime on it was very restricted.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remember this significantly about my childhood because it's a source of regret for me. I was a child. I didn't know better, I guess. But I look back and I realize anytime I went out, anytime I was at a friend's house, anytime, I was anywhere where I had access to video games, that's all I wanted to do because it was very restricted when I was at home. It was one of my favorite things to do. And so, so I lost out on a lot of quality interactions with my cousins, other friends, because when I was over at my cousin's house, all I wanted to do was play the Super Nintendo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I look at that and I realize, it's just another example of how when you try to suppress something, it finds a way, right? It finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it backfires.
And so
Yep, pretty much.
if they're repressing, kids who are really into video games, and granted, it's not that I think kids should have unlimited game time. I certainly don't let my kids have unlimited game time, but sometimes on a weekend, if it's not very nice out and it's been an exhausting week, we'll play games for 2, 3, 4 hours maybe. Usually not that long, but just saying, but normally it's like, well, yeah, you can have some game time, but then you go do something else, something productive. And they're great about it.
Right.
And this is surprised the heck out of me raising my kids. Surprised my brother too, when he came over and, observed how my kids are with screen time, that they're okay with having a limited amount and then being told, okay, it's time to turn it off and do something else. They typically would not complain about that because, it's not like they got enough that they were happy with, you know what I mean? And they still do all kinds of creative stuff, art and building with Lego and writing stories, stuff like that, And so as a parent, I'm pretty happy with how they're doing in that aspect. So yeah, so I don't believe in really, trying to suppress things like this. Obviously, there's an amount that's too much. So yeah, I think this is going to backfire. That these kids who don't have much game time are going to turn into grown-ups who all they want to do is play video games and maybe become game addicted for that specific reason. And I think there were times in my life where I bordered on game addiction because I was kind of like, when I was first moved out and stuff. Of course, I didn't have a life either, so what else would I do?
Your life was the game.
There were all these awesome games I'd never played, so I played them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I still maintained a job and supported myself, et cetera, et cetera. So, hey, Mad King, what have you missed? We talked about Cyberpunk, or we talked about CDPR hiring modders, and now we're talking about China being China.
So I just want to add in here that we ran a story I think it was over a year ago, about Tencent and about Tencent expanding out into the international market aggressively, extremely aggressively. And I pulled some sources, I talked to some people, and it wasn't like a thing that we could cite sources on or anything like that, but we came away with the feeling that there are gaming companies in China that really want to leave China. They really do not want to have their headquarters there. They want to get out. They want to get out from under the boot of a controlling, government who, when it suits them, will look at what they're creating and they will call it poison afflicting the minds of the youth, which is literally what they've done. And it was last week or week before we commented on how Tencent was lowering their gameplay time for minors from 2 hours a school day and 5 or 6 hours on the weekend to 6 hours spread throughout the week tops. And then China just came in and said 3. So they cut it in half, and they're being quite aggressive with this. I mean, they're continuing to be quite aggressive with this, and politicians right now in China that are work for the CCP are lambasting video games as a cultural decay, as opium for the mind, as a connection to spiritual opium, which is worse because regular opium is bad, spiritual opium is even worse because they're all the state religion is atheism. They don't want any belief system other than the government, which isn't really atheism. It's not real atheism. If you replace a power that looks after you from cradle to grave, guess what? It's not that's replaced the previous thing that was from cradle to grave. So this is the this is the reach that the government is doing, and lo and behold, this kind of confirms what a lot of what we were saying back then, that these companies want out. These companies don't want to stay there because at a moment's notice they're going to become the target.
Plus, how are they supposed to make any money? And this article, I wanted to point this out too. Tencent has gone along with all of this, or at least they imposed their own restrictions, like you said, and then the Chinese government came and said, no, even more. But they've, it's driving down Tencent's share price.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and any company that heavily invested in video games in China got hit hard in the last few days. Really, really hard. They got hammered. Some of them not doing good at all. Some of them lost 10%. Some of them lost 5%. Companies that did not focus in the Chinese market, they're not really affected by this. So, shocker.
Now it does say down here, the new regulations apply only to online games. A government official told Xinhua that it's up to parents how long their kids play other games that are conducive to minors' growth. So as long as it's like an educational game or something, maybe, I guess. I don't know.
Or a game that teaches you how certain political party members are wonderful.
Have you seen those? There were ads for mobile games for a while. There was Adventure Capitalist, and then they came out with Adventure Communist.
Oh my god!
You remember that? It was like, you get.
It's
all about getting the potatoes. Yeah, the potatoes.
Get more potatoes.
Then you get the big farm, where people of their own accord come in and grow more potatoes. I could just see the Adventure CCP. Learn why we are only looking out for your own good and are controlling every aspect of your life because we are enlightened and you're not, and you're too stupid. I'd probably say that more eloquently if it was.
Gets worse every year, man.
It's awful. And when you think about how China, the CCP, I want to clarify because I'm not talking about the Chinese people.
Yeah, there's a lot of Chinese people that are being oppressed and beaten into the ground right now.
I could see that. Wouldn't that be awesome, Dustin Pease? Winnie the Pooh teaches typing. They're the number one game in China. No. So if seeing as the CCP is basically trying to gamify all of life there with the social credit system and things like that, it's kind of like they've turned all of life into a video game. You do things, and it's like, oh, the government is... the government likes that. The government does not like... It's like those pop-ups in Fallout, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also look at how Tencent's losing money, and then I look at Blizzard, and I look at these other companies that bent over and took it up the rectum, and refused to speak out about things like Hong Kong and other, other human rights, very significant human rights issues going on there right now. And now it's going to become a far less lucrative market. Guess what? Because the people that you bent over and spread your cheeks for are complete totalitarian, insane people. Like, you think you're going to get in there and they're not going to try to screw you over too? How stupid are you? It's just infuriating. So, whatever. I think I've said all I have to say about that. But sort of in that same region of the world, but a very different country, South Korea passed a law that has major implications for the Apple versus Epic lawsuit that is still ongoing, but for iOS and Android app stores in general. They're basically in South Korea, you cannot, if you own an app store like the Apple Store or the Google Store, you cannot prevent people from implementing an alternate payment system within their own app. They made it illegal to ban alternate pay systems, which is the whole premise behind the Apple versus Epic lawsuit. Well, it's evolved into a lot more now, but basically that whole thing, if you recall, started because Epic decided to put their own payment system into Fortnite on the Apple Store. So that bypassed Apple's payment system, so Apple couldn't get their juicy cut of the profits. So Apple kicked them off of the iOS store. And so did Google, if I recall, but I don't know why the Google versus Android isn't, or why I don't. Did they sue Google or Android? I do. Anyway, so basically, so Apple versus Epic is ongoing in the States, but South Korea just kind of swooped in and made the decision for them. So companies that don't comply can be fined up to 3% of their South Korean revenue. I have to think there are a lot of gamers in South Korea. It's a small country, but
huge gaming.
A lot of people, a lot of gamers there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I wonder if that's going to change things at all, or if they'll continue to duke it out, or I wonder if other countries will follow suit with that.
Right.
Well, the prevailing idea that is going to help everybody is more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because more freedom, typically that's never a bad thing as a whole. And it's always funny hearing these people argue, no. See, young children shouldn't have the ability to, set up a small, lemonade stand without, police coming in and berating them and then arresting them for how dare you set up a lemonade stand without proper authority from the government. It's like that's just gone too far. Like,
yeah.
Like, sure, there's rules when it comes to like being, defrauding people and stuff like that, but that's not freedom. I don't call that freedom. I would call that, a crime, right? Because you're selling a product that doesn't exist, or you're creating a lie about existing products.
Yeah.
It's like, that's always a bad thing because that is illegal.
Yeah, and there's reasons why it's illegal, because it could cause widespread damage and taking it. Yeah, like there's a whole rationale why it's illegal, but so it's like there's this debate about should business be regulated or not. Well, it's not one or the other. It's to what degree. And I think that's where the argument lies. And I think that it comes down to the specific issue. I don't think there's any. We'll get too far into politics if I go down that road, but Anyway, I thought this was very interesting.
Yeah,
And-
no, just in reference to the South Korean story, it's like South Korea is embracing the concept of more freedoms, and it makes them a juggernaut in what they're doing. If
Mhm.
they were a bigger country with a lot more population with the same rules, I think they would be literally and figuratively laying the smackdown when it came to China. So this is something that we're going to see more of. We're going to see more of these fights through this kind of thing, and these stories are interconnected, right? Because you have freedom versus not freedom, and that really makes a big difference when you're creating things. Because it's very hard to create things when you have like all of the different rules and all of the different things, and
Right.
I've
Too
been
much red tape.
one of the things I've been paying attention to for a long time is like is engines that don't is engines that aren't based on current physics, like a gas powered engine, a electrical wheelbase engine, like coming up with things like an impulse drive, like an actual like impulse drive, like in a starship that just turns on a thing that makes them go in one direction, that doesn't require propellant or explosive propellant or something like that. It's just like let's turn on a thing and it literally moves us in that one direction. It's like that technology is it's in sci-fi everywhere, and there are people trying to come up with ways around this, but you have this like hardcore set of like scientists who are standing around saying, yeah, none of this can ever work because of physics, because of known physics. And it's like, yeah, I heard the same thing about that when we were talking about jet engines. I heard the same thing when we were talking about flying in general. It's like, in your current day, if you're a scientist and you go, there's no point in even trying because we're already at the pinnacle, you're an idiot. And you've always been proven wrong.
Yeah, it's
Stretching
insane
back to the dark ages, you've always been proven wrong when saying, no, we're at the pinnacle of what we can do with this technology right now. It's like whenever you hear somebody say that, that is a fool and somebody who will be mocked in the future. Like they might hold a position of power right now, but they will eventually become a form of mockery because they're idiots. Because again, they didn't invent the rules. This isn't Einstein. This isn't Newton. This is like people who went to college or went to a university. They learned one thing in one field, didn't come up with anything new, and then sit around critiquing everybody else for things. And it's like that same process is, and that same thing happens from everything from game development to core concepts. And when you have somebody sitting there raining on your parade, so to speak, it's like, of course you're not going to come up with anything new or interesting or unique or whatever.
So how does this relate back to the South Korea story? Just I missed the connection there.
I know it's really late and whatnot. So the connection is that freedom is always more important, and this is what South Korea is doing with the Apple versus Epic thing.
Okay, yeah.
It's like they're encouraging active freedom for more people to have the ability to do things that they want to do.
So we need to petition to
I think that's great.
Open up the laws of physics so they stop being so restrictive. I see what you're saying. I got you.
Well, I mean, again, it's a general thing. It's a general thing. All right.
I know, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, indeed. Yeah, I mean...
So I look at it kind of like a sandbox. If you make a sandbox that's like, clearly defined, appropriately large, that people can come and go and do their thing, then like you can get really creative with it. You can have a lot of fun things going on. Whereas if you have a constrictive, tiny, very like strict little box, like really, what can you do with that? Not much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, Funky. What Cyber's saying is we need to be able to think out of the box.
Yes, and again, that is what you're seeing being encouraged in South Korea versus not being encouraged in other places.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Well, we're partway through the show, about 3/4 of the way through the show, and we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you do want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, though, check out our Discord server. You can find the link to that in the description below. And there's a lot of great people there to talk to, talk about common interests with, and find people to game with, all of that stuff. Plus, stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Also, links to everything else can be found in the description as well. And if you're new to us, this is not our main channel. This is our podcast exclusive channel where we do the podcast live stream. And we have another channel called the Triple S League where we have all kinds of other content. Comedy stuff, general interest stuff, tons of game guides, all kinds of things, and you can request
investigative reporting.
Some of that too. And
Every once in a while.
You can request content on the Discord server as well. So yeah, that's where you'll find us most of the time, and we're here on Tuesday nights for this podcast. And yes, Moon has purple hair, and it looks great, by the way. I noticed that on Saturday. I was like,
It's actually
your
kind
hair
of
is purple. But
I usually have it darker than this.
Yeah.
But it's been pushing out. Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of just a fun, kind of weird one. And I want you guys to watch this interaction that happens. So this is very strange. It requires some setup to explain. So there's a live TV show in Germany, and I have no idea what this show is. But anyway, so it's called Beat the Star. I guess contestants take on celebrities in various challenges. So it's one of those types of shows, reality shows or whatever, to win money, etc., etc. So host Alexander Dusat, known in Germany as Elton, is talking to reality TV star Evelyn Burdecki. And suddenly a member of the audience runs on stage and starts talking to Elton, demanding to know when there's going to be a GTA 6, Grand Theft Auto 6. And
now, for those of you who are like, oh my goodness, why? The answer for why, I actually had to look this up. Elton is actually quite the fan of Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
And has talked about it and tweeted about it apparently quite frequently.
So that's interesting context. But anyway, so here's the exchange in English, and then I'll let you watch the actual video, and you tell me if you think this is staged or if it was actually genuine. Genuinely, just a random guy running up on the stage to go away, stupid video. So the guy comes up and says, "I wish you a beautiful day. My name is Asa. I want to know, where the hell is GTA 6? I've been waiting 8 years for GTA 6. Elton says, GTA 6, it'll be there. And the man says, yeah, exactly. Shout that into the camera. Evelyn, the lady there, says, oh, you gave me a bit of a fright. Elton says, GTA 6, I have no responsibility for that. The programs have to... ... I don't know what that means. That's very interesting.
Programmers.
Yeah, okay.
Have to,
so this is a mistake here. Evelyn Burdecki says, "Isn't this a video game?"
I mean, I don't think they were speaking exactly like perfect.
Yeah. So anyway, a bit of banter with Evelyn, and then the man says, "Please send a message. Shout into the camera. Where is GTA 6?" Elton says, "No, I don't have to do that. I haven't even finished GTA 5 yet." And the man says, well, someday. And Elton says, did Take-Two pay this guy or whoever makes the game? Then a security guard comes on stage and escorts the guy off. But the security sure waited a while before leading the guy off stage. So I don't know if they thought it was... Yeah, so let's watch this. Oh shoot! I thought that I had that up on the screen. My apologies.
No, you don't. I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry. That was me being stupid. Okay, it's kind of small on the. Let's see if I can make it bigger here. There we go. Sure nobody minds seeing her bigger. Wow. Okay, so all right.
That was a very terrible pun.
Wettkämpfen teilgemacht. Auch bin ich schlauer als Evelyn Modecki. Und da sind auch tatsächlich noch viele erstaunt, weil die halten nicht alle für total dumm, aber du bist eigentlich gar nicht so dumm.
Einen guten Tag, Laser, mein Name. Ich würde gerne wissen, wo zur Hölle ist GTA 6? Ich warte immer noch auf GTA 6 seit 8 Jahren.
GTA 6?
Genau.
Da warte ich seit...
Habe ich mich erschrocken.
GTA 6, ich habe keine Ahnung, da müssen es ja irgendwann... Das liegt doch nicht an mir, das müssen, wenn die Programme...
Aber GTA ist doch ein Computerspiel, oder nicht?
Genau, GTA 6.
Kenn ich nicht.
Sie setzen am besten ein Zeichen. Einmal in die Kamera schreiben. Wo ist GTA 6?
Nee, das brauche ich nicht, weil ich hab ja 5 noch nicht mal durch.
Ja, wird irgendwann mal. Irgendwann mal.
Ja.
So,
Wurde der jetzt von Take-Two bezahlt oder warum?
there it is, and I mean, obviously, well, unless you speak German, you maybe don't understand what's being said there. But I thought, I don't know if you think that feels like it was scripted and acted out, or if it was genuinely a spontaneous incident. And even if this host guy is a big GTA fan, you know, why would some random guy come up and demand GTA 6 of this random guy?
Well,
Yeah,
again,
it's very strange.
He's a notable person, obviously.
So did this guy just say, you know, did he think, hey, if I get what's his face, if I get Elton, big TV star in Germany, Elton, to say, hey, we want GTA 6, that'll kick Rockstar into gear? Is that what he was thinking? Like, it's just such a weird event, but
No, it's really like, it's really simple when you think about it. The guy, let's say this is not staged, that this is a genuine, reaction. So if this is a genuine reaction, which again, there's a handful of things that makes me really doubt it. But okay, so let's say again, genuine event.
okay.
Then the person who's, the guy in question, he's got a couple things, wrong with his head in the way that he thinks about data and information. One, he assumes that because this show is really important and he watches this show, he assumes that everybody also watches this show. And this is something that people who aren't very good socially, or they have some, they're not too bright, or there's some, there could be some temporary brain damage from an accident, stuff like that. You see this a lot with people who get head trauma too, where again, they assume that if they know the information, that everybody knows the information. So in this case, i.e. the person who's on the stage doing the show, he watches the show, everybody he knows watches the show, therefore everybody in the world watches the show. So everybody in the world, despite their language, watches the show. So if he can get the guy to say something to the audience, then everybody in the world will hear that thing that's being requested to say to the audience. Again, this is very common psychology for people who grab, either grab microphones or run onto stages or or try to get into TV stations. It's like, this is a very common system. Is that because, again, they believe that everybody is watching. Because they watch, therefore everybody else must be watching. So if they get onto the camera and they state something as fact because they believe it's fact, then also everybody else will understand that it is fact as well, and that then change will be an immediate and instantaneous effect on, reacting to that situation. That's how their brain works.
Well,
which is how pretty much everybody listening knows that that's complete, horse doo-doo. It's not how everything works, and therefore obviously we know that. But again, when you're dealing with somebody who is, hyper obsessive, they don't translate that necessary information in that same way, and so they're running with a baseline concept of like, well, if I know this, everybody else must know this as well. And again, I've heard people talk about this, like, they talk about a dude on a sports team. It's not even a big sports team. It's like a small team. It's like a college team. And they're like, yeah, you know Jesse on the college team, and the person's like, no, like, and they're like offended. They're suddenly like, you don't know Jesse on the college sports team? What are you doing with your time? Because again, they assume that that's the thing. So yeah,
they
that's explained.
How I feel.
I know Funky's like he's a crazy dude. Move on. I'm not interested in the crazy dude. I'm just explaining the thought process behind crazy people. So
well,
yeah,
I mean, it could very well be that. But do you think so? You said assuming it's not staged. Do you think it's just spontaneous, or do you think it was some kind of staged thing?
I'm sort of betting that that it wasn't staged by, obviously, the studio or the developers, obviously not, but it may be something that is staged-ish by somebody who has they're like, hey, I'm going to get on TV and I'm going to say a bunch of crazy things, and that's part of hey, now that everybody knows that I'm that guy, then they will go and they'll show up at my, they'll show up at my at my whatever social media thing that they're using. Right?
Yeah, I wonder if he's some social media
it's a publicity
influencer
stunt in their mind. That may not necessarily go out the way that they think it will, but people have been made famous for less, right?
This is true.
So,
yes,
and then
indeed.
people have been ruined by less as well.
So yeah. So I don't know. What do you think, Moon?
I don't know, just the way that the people reacted, it didn't seem very get him off, what's going on here? So I don't know, they didn't seem very panicked. But at the same time, I'm just I don't know, it didn't feel organic either. So who knows?
It made I'm kind of it made the host guy and the other lady, they maintained their composure very well. And the lady was there's a language barrier, so I can't tell for sure, but when she said, you gave me a bit of a fright, it's almost sounded like that was a scripted thing to say, but again, it's kind of hard to tell just because of the language barrier. But
I would say that in this particular case, the lady is and again,
she's a professional TV personality too.
She's a professional TV personality. Yeah. Most of her responses are prearranged in her head, right? Mm-hmm. So she's going to state that in the same way for many different situations, or it's the first prepared response essentially for something kind of going sideways. That is a prepared, because they teach you to do that when you're entering either film or acting classes or getting into media, radio. It's they train you to have as a host, you have a story, you have a short quip, you have an approved joke that's ready to go at all times. Yeah. At all times, you have this ready to go in case things go sideways. In case the guy behind the camera or the guy in your ear goes, "We have a problem. Stall for 30 seconds." It's you have a prepared thing that you do. If you're good, you have a prepared thing that you do for 30 seconds. Right. And if you can make that look and feel seamless, and that the people watching the screen has no idea that there's a problem, then that makes you a good professional, and that's what people like. I remember the one news anchor guy who was not good. He had not prepared any of this stuff. He gets on the channel, and the first thing he's doing is he's muttering, a bunch of swears to himself, and then he messes up his line, and then he swears 5 or 6 more times on live TV, and it's he had not prepared himself. He'd not driven it into his head not to say those things, or to come up with clever stuff to work your way out of that situation. So it's if you don't prepare for that, then that's what happens. So
no, fair enough. I mean, overall it did seem fairly organic, but the one thing that made me think maybe it's not is how long it took before the security guy came up to escort the guy off. That's the one thing where I'm like, well, that seemed to take a long time. Anyway, we were going to talk about this article about Elden Ring. There was some new information. Journalists, I actually came across this just before coming on, just before starting the podcast. So I haven't had the chance to really review this too much. But apparently journalists saw 16 minutes of never-before-seen footage of the Elden Ring. However, we're kind of out of time, and I don't really have anything prepared to say about it anyway, because I was going to skim through the article live, but it's probably better if we put that off. If there's anything interesting, we'll maybe cover it on a future show. And
we'll do an update on it this weekend.
Yeah.
It's nothing huge. It's like, oh yeah, you get to customize your character in the same ways that you customized your character in previous games, that they did. The combat and character control system is exactly the same for the most part than in previous games. And there's only been small advancements made in that perspective. So
okay.
That's basically it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they're still keeping a tight lid on this one, so definitely interested, but not necessarily much to say about it right now. So anyway, thank you for joining the show today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that this was a beneficial use of your time. We really appreciate you being here. Please do slam that like button and subscribe if you appreciated this show. And, of course, check out the Discord server, as I mentioned earlier. And a special thank you to our Patreon supporters and channel members who helped to make this content possible, whose names you have seen scrolling on the top of the screen throughout the show today. Really appreciate you all. You can always listen to the show after the fact on the road or wherever. If you find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on most platforms. Not every single one, but we're on most platforms out there. And, of course, see the Discord server for times and schedules of all of our live streams and announcements, things like that. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyber Moontag, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.